Hey, I know what's missing. Dr. Minor used to always have our music playing as we're preparing to open it All right. Hello, hello. Good evening, National Baptist Convention USA, Inc. Welcome to our March NBC USA Hope Health Webinar, TempleCare Matters. We acknowledge our national leadership, Dr. Jerry Young, President, Dr. Alvin Edwards, General Secretary, Dr. Alvin Love, Chair of the Federal Faith-Based Development Initiative, and Dr. Michael O. Minor, National Director, NBCUSA, Liaison to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. In this evening's TempleCare Matters webinar, we have two special panelists to share about Minority Health Month. We'll also share about the other two April suggested health observances, National Autism Awareness Month and World Health Day, which is Friday, April the 7th. We'll also provide our monthly Let's Move update. Finally, we'll share the dates for upcoming mental health first aid training sessions. This evening's webinar is supported by funding from the NIH All of Us Research Program. We want you to join our NBC USA Hope team in becoming one in a million in one of our nation's most robust research studies. To learn more, you may go to www.joinallofus.org NBC USA. This webinar is the latest in our series of First Tuesday TempleCare Matters webinars that have evolved into hybrid events with virtual and in-person watch gatherings in our NBC USA congregations. Before we get started, let's have some quick updates about COVID, because you know we have to keep reminding you all about COVID. So just one brief reminder that the public health emergency in response to COVID-19, that's going to expire on May 11th. And what that means is we're still going to be able to receive the vaccine at no or low cost until that time. Afterward, the cost may range around $100. However, insurance companies may negotiate a lower price. And one more reminder, although these mask mandates have been lifted, protect yourself. It's still acceptable and advisable to wear a well-fitted mask when you're in a crowded area or when traveling. So don't forget that COVID is still out there, although it's definitely much better. Praise God for that. Now, let's turn to this evening's feature, Minority Health Month 2023. So every April, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Minority Health, observes National Minority Health Month to highlight the importance of improving the health of racial and ethnic, American Indian, and Alaska Native communities by reducing health disparities. Last month, the Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Minority Health, announced that the theme for the National Minority Health for 2023 is Better Health Through Understanding. Now, it's estimated that about 14% of the U.S. population has proficient health literacy, and that nearly 20% of the people in the United States speak a language other than English at home. So this year's theme focuses on improving health outcomes for racial and ethnic, American Indian, and Alaska Native communities by providing them with a culturally and linguistically competent healthcare services, information, and resources. So we're privileged tonight to have two outstanding panelists for this evening's panel discussion. We have Dr. Chantrice Allen and Dr. Kanisha Bryant-Moore. So let's start with Dr. Allen. Dr. Allen is an assistant professor in the Department of Environmental Health Sciences at the University of Alabama, Birmingham, UAB, School of Public Health. She's also an associate scientist in UAB's Center for Clinical and Translational Science, General Clinical Research Center. She has over 10 years of experience with health education program design, implementation, and evaluation with multidisciplinary and complex partnership. She also has an extensive record of working with diverse, underserved, and vulnerable populations. Along with her experience in both traditional classroom and innovative study investigations, Dr. Allen has strong writing, research, and analytical skills. As an assistant professor in environmental health sciences, she teaches and conducts research in the area of environmental justice, community livability, and health equity. Wow, she is a busy lady. So let's talk about Dr. Bryant-Moore. Dr. Bryant-Moore is a tenured professor in the Department of Health Behavior and Health Education at the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences in the Faye W. Boozman College of Public Health. Presently, she serves as the co-director of the Community Engagement and Dissemination Core of the Arkansas Center for Health Disparities and as Associate Director of the Community Engagement Core of the Translational Research Institute. Additionally, Dr. Bryant-Moore serves as the Director of the Faith Academic Initiatives for Transforming Health Faith Network. For over a decade, she has engaged communities of faith to address health disparities and inequities experienced by some of the most vulnerable populations. As part of this network, faith leaders are educated on the basic principles of research, health-related issues, and given the opportunity to partner, not just get data collected on them, to partner in research and program efforts. Dr. Bryant-Moore received her Bachelor's of Science in Nursing and Bachelor of Science in Healthcare Administration from the University of Michigan, Flint, her Master of Science in Nursing from Duke, and her PhD in Nursing from Azusa Pacific University. Dr. Bryant-Moore is the mother of 4 daughters, and she enjoys traveling, dancing, singing, baking, and spending time with family and friends. Wow. We are so blessed to have such outstanding panelists this evening. Let's begin this evening's panel discussion. In keeping with the Minority Health Month theme, we will ask our panelists several questions about health literacy. We will also encourage those watching and listening to post your questions in the chat or in the comments on social media, and we're going to do our best to respond to them. So let's get started. Dr. Allen, let's start with you. So for those individuals who are watching who are novices, what is health literacy?
That's a great question, Dr. Williams. And I'm going to use CDC's definition of health literacy just for context in our conversation. So essentially how CDC defines health literacy is the degree to which an individual actually is able to find, understand, and use information in order to make an informed health decision for themselves or for someone else. So some examples of that very quickly, it would be scheduling a medical appointment for yourself, and being able to kind of, walk through that process, understand what the scheduling process is, who to talk to, etc. Or
Wow.
navigating one's insurance plan.
Oh, wow, that's a tall order.
Another example of that. So again, the ability to find information, to understand it, and then to use that information or services in order to make an informed decision for yourself or others.
Wow. You have anything to add to that definition, Dr. Bryant Moore?
No, I totally agree with the definition, obviously from CDC. And just thinking as a healthcare provider, just some of my patients, their ability to even fill out paperwork when we're talking about their family history, what medications they're currently taking, those types of things. And I always use the example, I had a patient actually write down that his mom passed away from prostate cancer. And we were like, well, I don't, we need to talk through this. So being able to understand those things and to be able to complete that paperwork and the navigation is a huge piece.
Wow. Yeah, these are complex considerations that people make regarding health literacy. But this provides a great foundation for what we're going to talk about tonight. So, but Dr. Bryant Moore, why is health literacy why is it critical in regards to health disparities?
So when we look at groups that are consistently experiencing health disparities and inequities, they already are experiencing social determinants things far as like achieving, higher education, having jobs that actually provide insurance. So we're already battling those things in addition to other social issues like discrimination, racism, and so forth. So if you compound all those things and you add health literacy to the badge, that just puts another weight on something that's already challenging for people.
Indeed. Dr. Allen, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I've got just to piggyback off of Dr. Bryant Moore's comment. You mentioned discrimination. There's this disproportionate number of African Americans, particular, that have low health literacy. That's rooted in historical unjust power structure. We know that. Back to her comment about just education and access to it. So health literacy, I think, in terms of overcoming health disparities is an important part, or increasing health literacy is an important part of just the trust building process and engaging with the healthcare system in general. And, trust, we know, is really critical and crucial in advancing health equity and reducing health disparities in the African American community. And low health literacy is an important part of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Dr. Allen, I know that you've worked with the All of Us research program at UAB. Has health literacy played into that, even within the context of recruitment?
Yes. Yes, it has. I haven't been directly involved in kind of enrollment of participants, but listening to our enrollment team, talking with those who are even a part of the retention team for the All of Us research program, limited health literacy definitely comes into play with recruitment in the enrollment process itself. There are things that an individual has to be able to do in order to participate in this study. And one of them is to be able to use digital technology, to be able to answer questions and hopefully understand what they're being asked.
Yeah.
So yeah, health literacy definitely comes into play with all of us.
And I would think also it comes into play with even the informed consent process of making sure that people understand what they're signing up for.
Right. And I've heard, that we talk about the informed consent process with the All of Us study as a continuum. It doesn't end when one signs their name on the consent document. There's always opportunity to continue to inform and educate and allow an individual to make a decision about what they want to do. Some people may not want their electronic health records to be linked to the All of Us study. They need to have the opportunity to understand what that means in the context of the study and then make a decision as to yay or nay. Do they want to do that? And that doesn't prohibit someone from being a part of the study. That's just that's just something one can choose to or not to do.
Right.
So it's an ongoing process with the consent piece.
Well, thank you for just, reminding us again how important the All of Us program is, and that the scientists are paying attention to those kind of matters and making it flexible, adaptable, but based on a person's level of comfort with the program. Thank you. Dr. Bryant Moore, anything to add to that?
No, and I think, as we're talking about health literacy, some of the work that I've done in the community is a challenge to know even the difference and how it's is it a trust issue? Is it just a general knowledge issue, or is it really a health literacy issue? And it's all so intertwined that it's kind of challenging at times to be able to tease out what is what.
Absolutely.
For example, we oftentimes, I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I apologize. So oftentimes we will even have community members provide input to researchers before we even start the recruitment process, to even say, okay, is this lay friendly? Is even the pictures, because a lot of times we need to do infographics rather than written words. Are we having too many words? We're fortunate at our university to have a whole center related, just health center a center for health literacy. And that's all they do is look at the materials, make sure that not only our research materials are appropriate, but also our health education materials as well. And that has been, I would say, a strong advantage for us over the last several years to have that resource, because like I mentioned, a lot of times it's hard to tease out what is what, if it's really an education issue, a health literacy issue, a trust issue, or even something else.
Yeah, absolutely. So Dr. Bryant Moore, I know that you've also conducted some research around mental health. So how does health literacy interplay with mental health?
And again, this has been a very challenging topic, to say the least, mainly because, again, of stigma. And I've done work specifically with an African-American community in the rural areas of Arkansas. And so we kind of just wanted to understand first, what do people think is the cause of depression? And we received, so many different responses that were some kind of stigmatizing. Some were, they thought, more spiritual based. Some thought it was more medical based. And then trying to tease out again, is it an education thing? Is it a health literacy thing when we're providing this information? And then trying to really figure out then what is the best approach. And so I have spent probably the last decade actually trying to address some of those things, because even when someone recognizes that they need help, again, knowing where to go, how to access care through your insurance company, or if you don't have insurance. And then again, because we're dealing with so much stigma, especially in the rural communities, if somebody sees your car at the crazy clinic, then
Oh, wow.
everybody in town is going to know. And then so we've had to try to navigate that as well. But then, like Dr. Allen mentioned, sometimes that's telemedicine. Then we have to then go over this next barrier that may be using, telemedicine to connect people to the mental health care services that they need as well.
Yeah.
So can be very complicated, but we have been taking the time to address these issues, especially around health education, to actually people know what a mental health care provider is, and knowing where you can actually get into the system and to being able to seek help and support.
Yeah, but you know what? I really admire the approach of stepping back to first understand what is the issue. Is it health literacy? Is it lack of trustworthiness, lack of knowledge? What is the issue first? And then moving forward. That's a great response to any matter relating to health disparities. I like that. So what about you, Dr. Brian Moore? I know that Dr. Allen, that you've conducted some research around COVID, and with the national response to the vaccine, what role did health literacy play with that, especially as it pertains to the communities of color?
Yeah, COVID was, in whatever phase we're in now with this pandemic, but at the beginning of this, at the height of it, because there have been peaks and valleys with this, what the pandemic really did, in my opinion, was expose a number of challenging issues, particularly when it came to medical misinformation, and also disinformation, which is a little bit different because that's, just kind of blatantly putting false information out there. But the public health community took a big hit with, or even bigger hit, I would say, with the pandemic happening. And then thinking about those who, were working in spaces such as myself. In 2020, I worked with some colleagues where we did some virtual community conversations similar to what we're doing tonight. And we were talking with faith leaders, with women health experts and practitioners, clinical practitioners, as well as social service providers, about how they were addressing COVID based on their clientele. Mm-hmm. And what we learned, particularly in reference to the African American community, is that there's a fundamental distrust of institutions, and particularly non-Black institutions, that because those historically haven't served us well. And also people were very, the CDC, even though we know this is we have seen this or see this to be a trusted source of information, there was a lot of questioning of government public health, local public health departments, schools of medicine, public health practitioners, those who were out in the field, community health workers. I mean, there were so many questions that were coming at people. So I think it's important to know that and to understand that, on top of one having maybe not understanding even how this virus was transmitted. Mm-hmm. Not understanding that, in addition to not trusting who's actually telling you about this, is, it's just layer upon layer of, of concern that I think we're still working through. And so, having some understanding of the information that was being presented, because it was changing all the time. Right. Yes. I mean, every day we were hearing something different. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask. Mm-hmm. Social distance in this way, close schools, don't go out, have your groceries delivered, all of these things that people were having to navigate. And, you know, if it was just basic information that you're not able to comprehend,
Right.
it definitely presented, I think, an enormous challenge to those who have low health literacy and to those who were actually trying to serve
Yeah,
public as well.
absolutely. And Dr. Bryant Moore, as it relates to rural communities who foundationally don't have the resources that urban communities have. I mean, how did you see COVID response as it relates to health literacy play out in those communities?
And so we were fortunate that we had the Faith Network already established. And one of the reasons why we established it in the first place is you go into a rural community, you look around, and there's always going to be a place of worship. It may be 2 or 3 right here around the corner from each other. And so we looked at that as not only an asset within the community, but in general, faith communities are trusted, especially when we're talking about the South and we talk about rural communities. And so we were fortunate in the sense that we already had a lot of connections and trust built within the network. And some of the faith leaders who had previously told us that, oh no, we're focusing on saving souls, not these health issues you're talking about, they actually came to the table as well at that time. Because when the mandates came down to close church and close, your place of worship, a lot of people just didn't know what to do, did not know how to take it. And some were like, we don't never close the church. And so, we're like, okay, so how can we think around this? And even the language we were using, some of the pastors were telling me, no, we can't distance ourselves from peace. We have to stay connected and we have to figure out ways in order to do that. And so I'm also fortunate here in Arkansas that our Department of Health has an office of faith-based outreach. And so I work closely with them and we developed toolkits along with our Center for Health Literacy for places of worship to be able to take these toolkits, signs to put within their places of worship, all those things. And we started a distribution center for masks and any other PPE that they required. We were able to ship that across the state or make deliveries. I will put a plug in. We actually did about a 30-minute documentary talking about the faith community's response to COVID-19 in Arkansas that's out there on YouTube that kind of shares what the faith leaders, that came to the table and realized that we had to come together and realizing that they're trusted folks within the community. I was out at vaccine events, trying to educate people. And again, they were in their cars and I was just going car to car talking. And the pastor comes out. They totally ignored me and what I was saying, but he came out and said the same exact thing. For stronger impact than what I said. And if we didn't have those established relationships before the pandemic, we would not have had the impact that we did within the community. And we were very intentional too about, asking the faith leaders, where are you getting your information and who do you trust? Because yet again, like we were saying, there's misinformation out there and people blatantly saying the wrong thing. But we wanted to make sure that the faith leaders were also equipped to make sure they're sharing the correct information as well with their congregations and community. So we offered trainings and support in that sense as well.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, a necessary intervention there. Dr. Allen, what would you like to share about the
I think that's interesting to listen to Dr. Bryant Moore talk about that. We too did some mass distribution work here in Alabama in rural areas, specifically focusing on elderly individuals and who may not have had at that time, who wanted like a better quality mask or a higher quality mask. So we were we did that, and we asked pastors in several rural areas that we're working in on a project that I'm working on that's focused on heart and lung issues. We wanted to know, could you let us know who would really like to receive this? And we had a few people, a few pastors who said, we don't need this. And we were like, okay, well,
All right.
that's fine. Another thing that I think that came up in conversation, particularly just at the beginning of this, and during the Delta surge, was how people interacted with their faith community when it came to homegoing services, and in connecting with family in that way, because there were a lot of virtual services that were happening because people just could not come together in order to pay their respects. So there were a lot of challenges around that, and just talking with people about how they were dealing with that, which also brought up conversations around mental health and mental well-being. And so it's just, all of this is so connected. And so while people are talking about PPE, there is also another conversation that was going on in some communities that I was working in around, how do I stay connected to people that I care about, and that I love, when we're being told to physically distance ourselves from each other? How do I, is something lacking in the way that I'm paying respects to a loved one or to a friend because we can't actually come together at this service? Those are the types of conversations that were going on in communities that I continue to work in. So COVID, again, it exposed so many different layers of things.
Oh, yeah. And necessary conversations too, that really matter to the individual as well as to the church body as a whole, and helps us build that trustworthiness that we need to build with these communities. Dr. Bryant Moore, you mentioned a toolkit a moment ago. Could you speak more about what was in the toolkit and the process for knowing what to put in it to address health literacy?
Yeah, so we followed the guidelines from the Arkansas Department of Health as it relates to places of worship gathering. And like Dr. Allen mentioned, they did not want to socially distance. They want to physically distance from each other. And we're trying to figure out, well, how can we still be social, but not be in the same space? And so faith leaders, again, a lot of them in the rural community, we have connection issues with our internet. So Zoom, look, I'm having problems today. So Zoom sometimes is an option and sometimes not. So we're like, okay, we're going to, what was it, the party line back in the day with the telephone. So we're going to have the party line and we're just going to get on the phone. And for some of our seniors, that was actually easier for them to be able to dial in on the phone. We encourage services outside. When people were in their cars, they set up the speakers. And so they can remain in their cars and just roll the windows down and still see each other, wave each other, and be able to connect in that way as well. So we had tips specifically on how you continue to be engaged. We also had in there about proper hand washing and wearing a mask. And I think I mentioned before the different signs that they could actually put on the door. So it's like, if you're having these symptoms, please, you're welcome if you don't, but if you do have these symptoms, then we're going to ask you to stay at the house. So there was the signs where they had to put on the door. Again, hand washing signs, wearing the mask. And so that was included. We were also able to provide some of the automated hand sanitizer machines and some of the sanitizer that goes in that, along with other PPE items as well.
Yeah, that's great. I didn't imagine that was extremely useful to them. But, just in general, when we're thinking about health literacy, what advice would you two give to a church? Just health literacy in general. Considerations that we should be making.
I would probably say that, churches really play a significant role in kind of serving as a powerful resource when it comes to promoting health literacy. I mean, we read our scriptures and we want to apply them to our lives in particular ways. And I think that same messaging can be translated to this is how you need to make sure and ensure that, you're controlling your blood pressure. So connecting those things, I think, is important. And the church has plays a really important role in that and is very equipped to do that. Also too, lots of social media is a thing. And some churches have certainly embraced it, had done that before COVID even happened. So using those platforms, I think, is another really good way to distribute information that is understandable and that one can use to make a good informed decision. I think churches are very primed in that way to be able to be that resource for people.
Yeah, that's a great point. Dr. Bryant Moore, anything to add to that?
Yeah, and that is part of why the Faith Network exists, is there's faith communities that are hungry for this information, knowing what resources exist in the community. And then on the other hand, I have organizations that want to provide the information. And so it's really just connecting the two is how we network to bring people together. And I think too, we have researchers that are interested in doing faith integrated work. And so we have had the opportunity to work with faith leaders across the state of Arkansas to actually do interventions that incorporate scriptures and incorporate this health information. So again, not only looking at health literacy and making sure the information is understandable, readable, and those types of things, but also then building the capacity of the faith leader and the team within that congregation to provide the education to the congregation and the community at large, and having those resources. So we really want to empower places of worship to be able to do some of these things independently, because, we always say the research money dries up at some point, and we want to be able to have left some education, some capacity, something behind. I never disappeared. I'm sure the faith leaders probably say, Kenesha, you need to go somewhere because we're constantly coming back with new information and what have you. But we also want to be able to make sure they have information and resources at hand when they need it.
Absolutely. Capacity building, empowerment. I love it. Well, you all, we have really been blessed by your work, by your expertise, and about your passion and even your clear love for the communities in which you serve. I mean, it comes across so very clearly to us. So I see that we might have some questions from the audience. So why don't we take a couple of those now? Let's see here. Okay, none in the chat yet. Just greetings.
No questions from Facebook.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, we will move on and we'll come back to questions just a little bit later. So now we will remind everyone about the NBCUSA's collaboration again with the NIH All of Us Research Program. So, our community isn't just unique in its culture and tradition, but also in our health needs. So participating in the All of Us Research Program, it's a step towards making health research considers all of our needs. So we want you all to consider visiting www.joinallofus.org, NBCUSA. Visit now to consider enrolling in the program to help make research in general more inclusive. So hashtag join all of us today. And then another thing is Friday is World Health Day. On Friday, the World Health Organization will observe its 75th anniversary. Happy anniversary! In 1948, countries of the world came together and they founded the World Health Organization to promote health, keep the world safe, and serve the vulnerable. So everyone, everywhere can attain the highest level of health and well-being. The World Health Organization's 75th anniversary year is an opportunity to look back at public health successes that have improved quality of life during the last 7 decades. It's also an opportunity to motivate action to tackle the health challenges of today and tomorrow, similar to the All of Us program's goals. And now it's time for our monthly Let's Move National Baptist Update. So let's hear from our NBCUSA movement guru, Sister Nettie Johnson. There she is.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for that very informative discussion around health literacy, a really important topic. And y'all, I'm not going to take much time today. I just have a couple of things to lift, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can I get a thumbs up if you can see? Can you see it, Dr. LaVore? You can see it?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome, awesome. Well, really quickly, we just give God glory, and we're so thankful as new members do continue to come in and join the Let's Move National Baptist initiative, where we are working to be consistent in daily movement for our health as we normalize exercise in the African-American community. So what I would encourage everyone to do that is already a participant and that's taking advantage of the resources that we provide to continue to ask folks, tell your cousins, tell your relatives, tell your church family, and encourage them to join us, as this year is a year where we're focusing on 2 things: on consistency and on appropriate progression. We're calling it periodization. And so we're looking to progress the involvement, the number of people that are in the program, and also to safely progress the amount of movement that we're doing. I just want to lift a couple of very quick resources that we do have available for everyone, and to just remind you all, please do take advantage of our upcoming open hours. Open hours are a time when we come together to just answer questions, to celebrate one another, to discuss barriers or challenges. It's our time together in a safe community, and our next open hour will be held Tuesday, April 11th at 7:30 p.m. All of the Let's Move National Baptist members' details are in your emails that drop into your inbox. We want to thank everyone that did participate in our last masterclass session, where we discuss how to create appropriate goals. We can be about things and be very busy and be busy going nowhere. And one of the big important things is to make sure that we have goals that can set us up for success. So thanks to those that did participate. There were questions about whether or not there will the replay will be shared. And we're not going to share that replay, but we may have a repeat. There will be another masterclass coming up this month. Again, take a look in your emails to get further details on the date and the topic that is coming up. A new initiative that we're kicking off in this particular quarter is we're going to start highlighting what we call a move of the month. And we're going to try to pick something that that has modifications to fit almost every fitness level, but it will focus either on strength, cardiovascular endurance, on our mobility, right? Our flexibility, things that will help us to perform better in exercise as well as general functional health. So be on the lookout for that. And then we'd love to see some selfies or some pictures of you performing the move of the month as we go through that month. It will also be printed out in a way so that you can put it into your wellness workbook. So again, reminders, every bit of information that we share, from resources to free exercise programs to information about benefits to details on how to do this, to your own tracker. This is all to go into your personal workbook. So by the end of the year, you will be able to look back and have a track record and some instruction on not a general program, but what works for you, what works.
Yeah.
And again, if you have any questions, email us or let's talk about it in our open hours. Now, be sure that you continue to put your monthly tracker information down in your personal workbook and to share it with us as we are tracking for progression. And really quickly, I have a question, and I'm going to just relate this back to all of us. Who can tell us in the chat, and Dr. Williams, I can't see the chat right now. Who can tell us that's in the webinar, how many participants is the All of Us research program trying to get to? They want to exceed it.
Oh, Harry, answer.
So does anybody know?
Nobody yet. Nobody yet.
Come on, how many?
I see it. Ivy.
Sister Ivy Hutchins was the first one to put hers in, 1 million.
Yeah.
All right, now look, we're gonna do something different. And Sister Hutchins,
Definitely.
you're actually gonna get the gift card this month. How about
Ooh.
check that out? You're gonna get the gift card. That's right. All of us is trying to get 1 million or more participants of diverse backgrounds to participate in this research so that we can change health. But y'all, guess what? Let's Move National Baptist. We are mirroring that 1 million number. Remember, we're talking about progression in the number of participants and progression in how much we do move. So we are working to get to 1 million movement minutes collectively. All of our participants. So every minute that you move and that you track, it matters. It matters for your health. It matters for your functional ability. It matters to our organized movement and our initiatives. So be sure to track. There's more information coming in the emails, and let's work together to get this 1 million minutes. I have confidence and I'm trusting God that we can hit it by year end. Considering the number of participants and how we're moving, y'all, let's make this happen.
All right.
If any information or any questions, please do just hit us up at letsmovenbc.com. That's where you can sign up. Remember, we're sending our cousins, our friends, our coworkers, our church members to have them to join. And also there is a promo tab that has flyers and graphics that you can put on social media or that you can share with the media team or print and have at your churches to get other people to join. We just thank God for everybody that is participating in Let's Move National Baptist, and let's continue to move for our health. Thank you so much. And
Thank you so much, Sister Nettie. I'm ready to move.
Yeah. Congratulations to everybody.
So moving on. So April is also National Autism Awareness Month. So National Autism Awareness Month, it raises awareness for autism and Asperger's syndrome during April. So autism is a complex brain disorder that often inhibits a person's ability to communicate, respond to surroundings, and form relationship with others. According to the World Health Organization, about 1 in 270 people in the world has autism spectrum disorder, or ASD. ASD is a group, not just one, but a group of developmental disabilities that cause challenges in many areas of one's life. Some of the profoundly affected areas include social, communication, and behavior. Children with ASD are usually nonverbal, or they have restricted or repetitive behaviors. ASD also affects people of all racial, ethnic, and socio-demographic backgrounds. So it is no respect of persons. So now we're also going to have some updates on our mental health training efforts. Sister Bettina, Come on down.
Good evening,
Good
Good
evening.
evening, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Devorah. And I've really been enjoying so far our session, and a lot of good information. And I'm so happy that both doctors were able to join us tonight. In terms of our mental health, I've been promising you that we were going to have someone trained and we were going to get a scheduled class. So here it is. Our first class is scheduled for Saturday, April the 22nd from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. To register for that class, you just send me an email, Bettina Campbell, Bettina, Bettina @HopeNBC.com, or call me at 810-210-7720, and I'll put it in the chat for you. But I want you to realize that registration is going to close on April the 17th, Monday, April the 17th at 5 p.m. because there's some pre-work that you have to do before you can be a part of the class on that Saturday. So again, give me a call or an email or text me so that I can have your name and get to you the email information that you need in order to be a part of the session on Saturday, April the 22nd from 9 o'clock to 4 o'clock. And guess what? It's free. And you will get a 3-year certificate that says that you've attended this class and the things that you've learned. And if you are a professional and you need some professional credits, like in social work or medical or health field, then you will get 6 to 8 credits for that. Free CEUs. Now, you know that don't happen.
Free.
Yeah, I'm looking at a class right now where they want $345 for 12 credits. So, you know, it's expensive, and it's important that we keep our certifications relevant in order to be able to have our licensing. So again, please call me. And we are excited that we have Anita Beals Norsworthy that's going to be teaching the class.
Wow, Sister Bettina.
Excuse me. We have a raised hand, Sister Adrian Butler.
Sister Butler.
Oh, no, that was an accident. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that's all I have to report
That's all
for
you got?
tonight.
Okay. Well, that wasn't plenty. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So, wow, you all, we have covered so much this evening, but the best part is coming up now. We want to hear from you all. So what you can do is you can type it in the chat, you can raise your hand. And for those of you who are watching us on social media, we're going to do our best to try to capture your questions also. Now, while we're waiting on those questions and comments to start coming in, I want to again acknowledge the significant financial support that we receive from the NIH All of Us research program. And let's not forget all of our March marketing updates. March marketing updates. Okay, so you may there we go. And you can also download these annual health observances from our website, which is www.hopenbc.com. And you can find additional information and resources on the NBCUSA HOPE webpage. Again, www.hopenbc.com. We have 2 upcoming regional meetings. First, we're going to have our virtual Midwest Regional meeting on Saturday, April 22nd at 10:30 Central Time, 11:30 Eastern Time. And then you may join us April 28th through the 29th for the Southwest 1 NBC USA HOPE Regional Conference. That's going to be at Mount Olive, Meridian, Mississippi. The Pastor A.D. Lewis is the host, and Pastor Bernard Montgomery is our NBC USA HOPE Southwest 1 Regional Coordinator. For registration information for both of these conferences, email info@hopenbc.com. I believe that's in the chat also. So here's the agenda for our next NBCUSA Hope TempleCare Matters. That webinar is going to be held on May the 2nd. NBCUSA Hope Mother's Day, Bells for Remembrance, Breast Health Awareness. That's going to be Sunday, May 14th. National Women's Health Week is May 14th through the 20th. American Stroke Association, American Stroke Month. Power to End Stroke, that's going to be Sunday, May 21st. And as we mentioned, National Mental Health Month. You may join us on the web and social media and on our webpage, again, www.hopenbc.com. We're also on Facebook at National Baptist Convention USA Inc. Hope Health Initiative. We're on Twitter at Hope_NBCUSA. We also have a YouTube channel. That's also NBCUSA.Hope. If you would like to enroll in our NBCUSA Hope Health Ministry training, please email us at info@hopenbc.com, or you can just call us 901-603-0762. We would appreciate your feedback on tonight's webinar. There's a link in the chat, or you can connect to that webinar survey online at hopenbc.com/webinar-survey. So, okay, all the announcements are done. Let's open it up for some questions.
Hey, Dr. LaVore, we have a question from Facebook for our panelists.
Okay.
Any tips on keeping kids off electronic devices and staying active?
Okay, can we bring our panelists back? There's one of them. There they are. Okay. Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes, ma'am. Any tips on keeping kids or grandkids off of electronic devices and staying
Well, in my bio, you probably heard I have 4 daughters, and I have a 14, 13, 11, and 8-year-old, and none of them have cell phones. They feel like they're the oddballs in school, and that is okay. So I told them until they get a job and actually help pay for that cell phone, they're not going to get one. And so that will show me that they have some responsibility by having a job, and also by helping out as far as the payment as well. I also have restrictions with their tablets. Of course, if we put you can put timers on there. So they have curfews on the tablet, so you don't even have to take it from them; it automatically shut down. We also have limited to the most would be 2 hours a day, even to watch TV. And so I am very strict when it comes to that because of all the research out there in regards to that. But I think just having those boundaries and making sure that once you set the boundaries, that you enforce the boundaries. And my children know that too, that it is a privilege to have those electronics as well. So if you don't act right, then you don't get your privilege as well. And then obviously we want to be mindful of the content. Have had other parents tell me too that they have the code to their internet, and they will change that code, and so their children cannot have access to that as well. So I hope that answered that question.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Dr. Allen.
Ditto, ditto, ditto to everything that Dr. Brian Moore just said. I mean, it is important for parents to really just put those boundaries around how much time their kids are spending on devices. I mean, literally, there's research around, head and neck and joint issues because kids are down here, doing this all day long. So there are some real kind of health concerns with that as well, with vision and issues, again, joint concerns. So yeah, making sure that you're just putting some limits on how much time your children are spending on devices is so important, and sticking with it and being consistent is important.
Absolutely. I mean, the benefit of just being engaged and present and having conversations as it relates to health literacy and improving our literacy, you can't beat it. All right. I love those thorough answers. Any more questions? Tech neck.
Yes.
Yes.
That's exactly
For youth and adults, yes. I'm checking the chat. Help Sister Bettina. What other questions do you all have regarding health literacy?
I don't see any in the chat. You can also invite them to open up their mics and ask a question if they have a question.
Oh, are you? You all are welcome to do that. Absolutely. Well, this was such thorough and comprehensive discussion. I think we covered it all. Just in case, I know that, some of our listeners may have grandchildren or young children. How can we develop their literacy with so many different options, and many of those options being electronics?
Yeah. I think it's reading to your kids, spending time talking to each other.
Yes.
And not always, you shouldn't be texting each other when you're sitting at the table. We have these things called mouths and sound that come out of them for a reason. But I think it's honestly getting back to just some of those fundamental basics that we've gotten away from, is talking to each other, spending time with our families in a way that sometimes it doesn't take a lot to, for there to be meaningful time spent with each other, and just putting some value on that. I know my family is a little bit all over the place, so we actually do we do every other week Zoom calls with each other. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes it's hard sometimes, because it's like I'm on Zoom a lot, so that feels like another thing to do. But when we start talking to each other and just reconnecting, and it's not long, it's really, and honestly, it started as and it still is a kind of a prayer time. So we have, someone in the family will pray, and then we just talk for a little bit. And it's just a way to reconnect with each other. And although we're doing it in a virtual way, it feels like, okay, we know what's going on with the other, and that's priceless, honestly. But being able to do that in person with your own intermediate family is also important as well. So maybe literally like scheduling some time to say, this is family time, and we're going to do this thing at this time.
Okay. Excellent.
And I totally agree. And, when you talk about health literacy, I started, obviously I have a health background but with my kids, using proper terminology for body parts, even the private parts, we know exactly what that is. And I was the one who, educated my kids because I'm extra with a whole curriculum, about puberty and all these different things. But then my kids don't always listen to me. So I have to intentionally sometimes set out because we can't rely on the schools to provide all this health education and information. And we can't expect the kids to always retain it. So I'm very intentional too about seeking out other opportunities for my kids to learn from other healthcare providers and other groups. And so we do a lot of things together. Like we do family yoga together. We, take hike together, walks, those types of things. So we will have the open line of communication, but I'm still their mom, and still, even though I have a PhD and I'm a family nurse practitioner, I still don't know anything my teenagers. So I do rely on other people within the community to provide that information, and then I seek it out, within the community as well, to make sure we have that. And I know some churches actually have, this rites of passage that they do for young ladies and what have you, and talking about not only health related issues, but, I guess it is, when we talk about healthy relationships, what does that look like? And, we've been having a lot of talks about, if you're dating someone, how should they treat you?
Yeah.
Talk about violence within families. So all of those things I think are really important. And if you don't have those open lines of communication, within your family, it's going to be harder for them to be able to come to you and to be able to talk about those things.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Can I
We have a
say something,
question.
Dr.?
Okay.
I'm sorry, someone else was. Go ahead, whoever that was.
Oh, okay. Sister Marion Talley asks, with all the school shootings, how do you or what should you do with your school-aged child to make them feel safe?
That is a very hard question. Yeah, and I honestly don't feel like I am equipped to even provide an adequate response. I think with my kids, again, having those conversations, the same thing when we were talking about racism and when we had all the Black Lives Matters things, again, I don't always feel equipped. And the thing is, I will seek out other resources and other support when and where I can. And so I think it all starts with the open lines of communication, because you first need to understand, what your kids are feeling. And then how to then intervene or support them once you know what they're experiencing and how they're feeling.
Absolutely.
I think it's so true. It's important that you validate them.
Yes.
And understand. Don't tell them you shouldn't be afraid, because they should be afraid.
Yes.
And just be open, be honest with them, and validate what they're going through. And as Dr. Brian Moore says, seek out other additional information, people that trusted sources, that you can refer your children to. I think sometimes we get so wrapped up in how a question that they ask us, they throw us off, and we want to give them this detailed answer.
Yes.
And when all they're asking is a very simple question, and two words might be the answer to that question. So just kind of probe and find out what they're really asking and what they want to know about it, and then you know how to answer it. And I think the biggest thing is remember that what Dr. Brian alluded to earlier is that we're not our children's friends, we're their parent, and as their parent, we have a responsibility,
Yes.
And I will just say, I think I might have said before on some of my shows, is that when my children were growing up, we had a thing in my house that you could say whatever you wanted to say as long as you said it in a respectful manner. or you could ask. But at the end of the day, it's not a democracy, it's a dictatorship, and I'm the dictator.
Yes,
I understand. As long as you understand that, we're okay.
yes. So providing that safe space for them to voice their concerns
Yes.
and answer them in the way that's comfortable for you, and knowing when you feel that you're at your limit and you need to enlist assistance from others.
And don't be afraid to tell them, I don't know, but I'll find out for you.
Yes,
Yeah.
And then do that and get back.
absolutely.
And Sister Nettie has her hand raised.
Thank you all so much. I have a question for Dr. Bryant Moore, or Dr. Allen, or Dr. Williams, any of you three. We, as it relates to health literacy, what suggestions do you have? Because many of those that are on the call right now may be active in health ministries at their church. So when we're doing activities and outreach, what suggestions do you have to move the health literacy activities from just being head knowledge to actually being actionable things, so that it actually changes our lives? I draw the parallel with scripture that says that we're to be doers of the word. And there are a lot of us that may know the word and we live in just as scrappily as we want to because we're not applying it. And I think the same applies in some instances for health. In health, a lot of times we know better, but we just don't have education to take that literacy to the place that we know how to do better. So what general tips can you offer to those of us across the nation that are active in health ministry?
That's a great question. I will say this. I mean, Jesus was, I think, the master of, teaching people about literacy, because he told and taught through stories. And I think we need to, think about that as a real tangible way of teaching people how to be more health literate, is through storytelling, through testimonials, through showing people versions of themselves in these situations by using vignettes. Those are ways I think that can certainly support increasing one's health literacy, because it allows an individual to kind of put themselves into, that scenario or that space or that situation and say, oh, okay, maybe Dr. Google is not the best thing that I need to be doing. Here's how I should be talking to my healthcare provider or my care team about something. So, I think using kind of real world stories and examples would be an important kind of tool or way to help increase health literacy, particularly when it comes to people being able to identify what's good information, and what's not.
Yes. Good question.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think providing information, like she mentioned, from different perspectives. So some things may be written. I'm a fan of pictures, I'm a videos and vignettes and testimonies. I think just so different people learn different ways. And to be quite blatantly honest, some people are going to be passed, and I don't care how much you try to educate them, they're not going to do anything. And so that's just the honest truth. But we have also been trying to do like small things at a time. So like Dr. Allen, it's like, okay, when you go see your healthcare, so you don't forget it, have the list of all the medications you're taking. So we try to provide like simple tasks, or even I do a stress management workshop. And it's like, I give everybody a little prescription. I just want you to do one thing that is going to help you manage your stress. And we're going to write that down. And this is what you're going to work on. You're going to put it on your mirror when you get home, or put it in your bathroom, somewhere you're going to see it every day. And so we just start with something very simple, like task, that this is what you're going to do to engage more in your health. But like I mentioned, is you're gonna have to come from different perspectives, from different people, and it's gonna be a point of readiness for them to even learn or to change their behaviors.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Something that we do is after we present the information, we ask, well, we've talked about moving, for example, 30 minutes, 5 days a week. Well, some of you may not be ready to do that. What does this look like to you? Can you do 5 minutes? How can you adopt what we said in a way that fits your lifestyle and your willingness to change at this point? Doesn't have to be 30 minutes. It's what works for you today. Good question. Are there more, Sister Bettina? I don't see any.
Sister Ford just made a comment about
Lots of
how
compliments. I'm sorry, Sister Bettina. I was talking at the same time as you. What did you say?
That
No,
was
I'm
not
just-
me, that was someone else.
Oh,
no, I was just making a comment. Sister Ford noted that at the dinner table is a great place to talk and listen.
absolutely.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great place because we gather and we convene and we connect around food and our meals. So yeah, it's a great place to have conversation.
Another thing that I did was watch whatever movies or shows that they were watching, and then use those to have conversations with them about life. And so, did you see how she treated your friend? Is that a real friend? Is that what you want your friend? How you want your friend to act? Those kinds of questions, and to help them to understand. Or if it's those songs, do you understand what they're really saying in that song? Well,
Good point.
no, well, this is what they're saying. So is that what you really want to be singing about? Well, no, I didn't know that. I didn't understand. I just like the beat. Oh, okay. I just need to know.
I think we've heard that one before. I just like the beat.
I just like the beat.
Yeah, we have the words getting your spirit. Great point. Thank you for that, Sister Bettina. Okay. All right. I don't see any new questions. I don't want to overlook anyone. All right. Well, thank you so very much, Dr. Brian Moore, Dr. Allen. This was so rich. And thank you all for your questions. Again, we appreciate the tireless work of our NBC USA Hope team, Dr. Michael Miner, Dr. Desi Levy, Sister Lottie Miner, Bettina Campbell, Pastor Dexter Moraney, Ellen McKnight, Belisa Washington, Minister Geraldine Moore, Loretta Miller, and yours truly, Dr. Lavora Williams, Nettie Johnson, Dr. Marion Talley, and Thomas Duke Robertson. Thank you all so much for your tireless work for NBC USA Hope team. And our 7 regional coordinators, Pastor Daniel Blackburn, Brooklyn Rogers, Southeast, Pastor Bernard Montgomery, Southwest 1, Linda Copper, Southwest 2, Teresa Fales, Fair, Midwest, and Normal P. Jackson in the West, and Pastor Richmond Johnson, and of course, Dr. Jerry Young, our president. We know that some of you may have additional questions, so we're going to formally close this evening's webinar in just a few moments, but we're going to open the mic to see if there are any last burning questions, and we hope to see you again on Tuesday, May 2nd, for our next TempleCare Matters webinar. Family, again, we acknowledge our president, Dr. Jerry Young, who reminds us to envision the future exceptionally. This has been a production of the National Baptist Convention, USA, Inc., the nation's largest Black denomination. God bless you and God keep you is our prayer. Good night.